Question, what time is it in Lebanon? Let us know. 8 o'clock here, 8 p.m. here in Sweden. I think it's actually the same time zone now thinking, oh, it's 9 p.m. Okay, 1 hour ahead. Wow, awesome. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining Strawbees Classroom walkthrough. It's nice to see some familiar faces, some new faces, some old returning faces. Glad to see a few Strawbees educators. Makey is in here. Pretty passionate group. See quite a few influence from Twitter. So if you haven't met before, if you have not met me before, my name is Lindsay Balfour. I'm a head of education at Strawbees, and so I'm one of the main contributors to Strawbees Classroom, a project we've been very passionately working on for the last year. Very exciting development that I want to take about 30 minutes to walk you through. So this planar is a little on the quick side today. So there probably won't be enough time for me to go through all the resources. But of course, if you have any questions, you can contact me at lindsay@strawbees.com. If there are any links or resources that I show in this planar, then I will actually send them all at the very end of this session. And we'll also be doing a follow-up email with all the links. So that way you won't have a chance to miss out on any of the exciting developments. But Strawbees Classroom is actually open right now. So you are welcome to follow along with me if you would like. So I'm gonna drop it in the chat. So Strawbees Classroom is now live. You are welcome to make a sign up, follow along, watch me, or you can just start using it tomorrow. Take these ideas and use tomorrow. So I'm going to walk you through a few examples of lessons, lesson resources, a student activity, and I will briefly show you how to make a course in Classroom. And then at the very end of the session, I'm going to do a very short question and answer Q&A for short tool. So I really heavily advise that at the very bottom of Zoom, there is a Q&A tool that you can ask questions. Since I am facilitating this planar on my own, I definitely heavily advise the Q&A tool over the chat because I will be able to see your questions and answer them properly. And if I don't have a chance to answer them, again, I'll share my email so you can contact me independently. But I'll also show you some resources kind of tucked away throughout Classroom that can actually help answer quite a few of the questions. We actually have quite a few tutorials and video media that I'll point you to. And I definitely recommend after this session to take a look through. And also, as a thank you for everyone sticking around throughout this entire planar, I'm going to actually send 5 stickers to 5 random people in this group. So, it is free of charge. Nice way to get some mail. So I'm going to send a Strawbees sticker. It's unfortunate that I can't really show it as is, but I'll show you it on a colorful surface. So the sticker is transparent. It works on all colorful surfaces, maybe except white. So if you have a white laptop, maybe not quite, but it would be really great on a dark water bottle, on the back of your phone. So it's a great tool to add and share out. So I will be contacting you through email after the session. So, you'll see in your email by tomorrow if you have been picked and selected. So let's get a little bit into Strawbees Classroom. All right. So this is actually quite a powerful visual that we really envision how Strawbees Classroom is. So though we made a digital platform that collects a lot of our resources, our lessons, our activities, a lot of the building instructions, we actually really see the classroom as a very dynamic, hands-on learning experience. So some of the classic ways that you see Strawbees is very rarely on the computer. Sometimes you'll be coding, but sometimes you'll be drawing. Sometimes you'll be building on the floor, wearing Strawbees structures on your head. So we really envision Strawbees Classroom be a very powerful solution, not just as resources, but as a way to bring quality learning experiences in the classroom. So we created this library provided by educational partners, really great teachers, and resources that are customizable for different student needs and age ranges. So why learn with Strawbees? So we want to give every child the opportunity to become inventors to solve future problems. So we designed the platform to become friendly. So we want it to be teacher friendly. We want a lot of our video media, a lot of our images, visual media for building instructions be very colorful, dynamic, friendly, engaging, exciting, because especially kids are really, so even though we really love learning, when kids are having fun, the learning is natural. So that's why we try to make a lot of Strawbees Classroom resources to be very high engagement. So we also try to design with easy entry, so low floor for beginners, making it accessible for all learning abilities. A lot of the materials that we create in Strawbees Classroom is actually designed where we try not to rely on too much English text. So actually trying to have more visual kinesthetics to work together for a lot of students that have different learning needs. But we also design resources with a rise in complexity for advanced learners. So as some of us may understand, we may have some students in our classroom that maybe are, maybe they need a lot of time to themselves to really learn and to build, but it takes them longer. And you might have some students that maybe are very quick through the activities. They may coast through the activities fairly quickly. So we do try to create a lot of open-ended challenges. We try to provide a lot of resources so that way advanced learners can also be just as engaged. So before I go a little bit into the resources, Strawbees Classroom is kind of broken into, 3 areas. So, we designed it to save time. So in Strawbees Classroom, you have access to quality lessons that are made by teachers for teachers. And then they're also curriculum aligned. So while we have a lot of resources for open-ended, we also understand that sometimes curriculum alignment does help bring these great, exciting developments into the classroom. So we do design lesson resources for all ages. And we match them to NGSS Next Generation Science Standards, as well as Common Core, the Sustainable Development Goals, the United Nations. And then we're also looking to expand the library of curriculum standards to computer science and ISTE standards. So those are excitements down the line in the future. And then also student resources. So we actually want to make it easy to assign materials to students. So, we do have like facilitation guides that maybe have materials that, you would want only teacher viewing, but you also want an easy way to distribute the instructions. Like it could be on computer, it could be print, that could be really easy to give to students on your learning management system, or if you wanted to print it out. We wanted to try to be really mindful of the many different learning experiences, also showing on a smart board, showing it on your phone or tablet. So again, we try to design our resource to be very flexible and agile. So let's look a little bit into Strawbees Classroom here. So I took a moment to already log in. So there's actually a feature where you would actually go into the dashboard. So if you were to log in for the first time, you would go right into the dashboard, which kind of is the living ecosystem of updates. So there are like new articles, new lesson resources that would be published. Maybe there's a new webinar, there's an upcoming webinar. Oh, Strawbees Classroom Walkthrough is the latest and greatest webinar coming up. I hope you signed up. Thanks for being here. And then in the library, this is the main area where you would access most of the resources. So in the resources, we have like different ways to filter. So this library is a growing ecosystem. It's going to be constantly updated each week with lessons, activities, as well as professional development articles, webinars, and the School of Ridiculous Invention episodes, as well as many more resources to come. So you can filter by category, so you can actually look by specific resource type, which I will go through very shortly what they are. You can search by topic. So perhaps you have a topic that you want to include in a unit. So you want to do perhaps forces. So if you select by topic, you can select like these are the resources that have been aligned to forces as a unit. It's very general, so you may have to look and pick and choose to what your needs are. But in general, you can select by this, and you can also filter further by selecting a product that is associated with that. So I can go one step further and go to STEAM School Kit. And then I know, okay, these resources are perfect for me to use right now with the STEAM School Kit. And then also you can select by age and grade, and also by standards, if you would like. So this is the way that we want to, make it easy to search. Also, if you're on Twitter, maybe you saw that one of our lovely Strawbees educators has been posting some great projects. So if you recall what it was called, you can also just search it here and find the building instructions right here. So let's go a little bit into an intro lesson. So an intro lesson is basically a curriculum aligned, or a lesson in general is a curriculum aligned facilitation guide. And an activity resource is basically just the building instructions. So there's no curriculum alignment with it. It's just building instructions because perhaps you want to just go right into building a crane that you saw without needing to facilitate it, or maybe a student finishes early. So you may want to, and you have like 20 minutes to spare, and this activity works in 15 minutes. So activities work and they're very flexible. But if you want to like plan an entire period of 45 minutes or 15-minute series, then the lessons are a great resource to get started. So the intro lesson comes with, it's kind of like a simplified lesson that can be done in 15 minutes. And so inside a lesson in general, you'll find like a basic description of describing overall what the lesson is going to entail, as well as some basic learning objectives. And then there's the standards. So you can select here and you can see all the standards that are aligned to this lesson, as well as the grades that are associated. And if you want to read more about the standard, we also have links to the appropriate platform. So NGSS, you can click here and you can look a little bit further into the cross-cutting standards. And you can also find the compatible products here. Maybe you want to do this lesson, but maybe you don't know where to go, or maybe you don't know what product to use. So there's actually a little button here you can click and it'll bring you to the store and you can purchase the right kit so you can get started on this lesson. We also have things called assets, which are basically downloadable resources and materials. So these are resources that you can print and distribute physically. These are resources that you can actually share through your learning management system like Google Classroom. So if I go to assign students, so you can take a look. So I can assign this whole lesson this way, and I can actually click on Google Classroom and link it. So we're looking to expand the learning management system compatibility in the future. So this is actually going to be a growing list of learning management integration. Also, you can just copy the link and directly send the students. So maybe you don't have a learning management system and you just want to copy the link for later. So we actually have multiple ways that you can share the resources, but the same thing with the assets. You can also, give through Google Classroom, or you can download as well. And a lot of the assets are actually designed where they're like a Word document, so you can type into it directly. It's not like, sometimes it's a PDF that's more of a graphic, infographic. Sometimes there's something that students can edit or write in. So we do try to make them very flexible so you can integrate to Google Classroom and you can directly edit it, or you can print it out. So going into this lesson, so again, this is a very short lesson, and I'm going to show you a lesson that's 45 minutes shortly after. So in a lesson, there's like a few sections. So something like the materials, there are some sections that are only teacher view. So something like the materials, where maybe you don't want all your students to see what materials I need ahead of time, like preparation, if I need to cut paper ahead of time, if I need to download all these things, maybe you don't want your students to see. Maybe you also don't want to have your students see all the standards because, you may not want to have them think about these things or worry about it. So there's going to be usually a little blue hat next to it that tells you that this section is hidden to students. So we are currently in the teacher view, and very shortly I'll show you the student facing view here. Preparation. So here's another example. We have a teacher note. So sometimes in a section, you can actually have notes throughout the section. So, this teacher note here, you can actually, this can be hidden. This will be hidden to students, so they won't see it, but you can actually expand it and, open and close it. And generally in a lesson, we have like vocabulary words that are bolded. So that way, if there's terms that maybe are unfamiliar to students, we try to list it in the preparation so they have a moment to, refer, reflect, or if they're going through the lesson, but maybe need to recall on what a linkage is. We do have these definitions here. And we also have, sometimes in the assets, we also provide pre-lesson materials. So maybe you want to go deeper into what simple machines are. So we do try to add resources that can be in the form of an asset, but that's an optional thing to share. So in Imagine, so we have like sections like Imagine and Warm Up, which are basically kind of like where you start to imply the vocabulary. We have visual images to kind of learn about some of the concepts like mechanical advantage, simple machines. So introducing the topics and allowing students the possibility of hypothesizing with interactive questions. So, you can read the material, and there's complementing material media that we produce pretty often. And we also have questions where you can answer. So in the teacher view, you can't actually interact with the questions. In the student view, you can actually answer them. But in the teacher view, it allows you to see the overall of the answers or all the questions, and you can actually find which question is which one is the correct answer. So students won't actually be able to see the correct answer until they select the answer. And there's usually a brief description why. And then going into the build section. So, in the build section, this is like where you start to engage in the building instructions. So the project model that applies to the resource. So we usually have a video media that you can look at. So there's usually no music because music can be very disruptive in the classroom. It can be very, you don't want to have 4 videos playing at once. So we also try to embed the videos so they're off YouTube. So these are videos that are embedded in the platform, with the exception of the webinars. The webinars are on YouTube, but that's for teacher view only. So the build videos allow you to see like at least what students are going to build and actually have a reference. So when they're going through the instructions here, so there's like the media, and usually there's like a few step pieces down here that associate with the visual media. So that way you can at least reference where you are. And then there's also tips. So the tips are what students can see. So they can see this material. And these are kind of like troubleshooting. So sometimes we note that when you're building certain projects, it can be very difficult to, see, or maybe you might rotate the connector, upside down, but maybe it's like, if you're a new user of Strawbees or building a mechanical arm for the first time, you may not realize or recognize that. So we do try to add tips and troubleshooting in this, and even some image media to help you move through. And then in the building instructions, we do also try to have like questions of inquiry. So, like questions that, kind of prompt the thinking. So starting to apply what you learned in the Imagine section into the building instructions. So some sort of engineering engagement. And then we have video media. So it's kind of like a way of checking in. And then at the very end, sometimes we have questions. So it's like learning about where do you apply the least amount of force. So this is the mini mechanical arm. So then we have like a small infographic that's A, B, C, and you're able to see like, okay, in the question, like, okay, I need to guess like which way do I apply the least amount of force when I'm squeezing the mechanical arm structure. So again, like a lot of these questions, we don't actually, keep the answers. This is for the students' reference because we do not manage student accounts. We only handle teacher accounts. So this is not material that we actually want to handle. And, we want to think about the safety of your students. So this is another aspect of how you can include Strawbees with your learning management systems, because then you can protect your students' accounts and data. So let's take a look at the student view. And again, if there's any questions, I will spend 10 minutes at the very end of this webinar to answer. It's fairly difficult for me to share screen, but also see all the questions. So if I don't get to your questions right away, I will get to them at the end of this planar. So here's the intro lesson, the scissor linkages shown in the student view. So now it's remove the materials, the curriculum, and now you just go right into the lesson material here. So just like the vocabulary, I can go through into Imagine. So it's remove the teacher note at the top, and now I can interact with the answer with the question block. And so it does take a moment before I can actually answer again, because you might have some students that are clicking really quickly. So you want to actually have, there's a short pause. So that way you don't have to click. So then I can click on the right answer, and now it shows like an answer response. So that's like a little bit about the basic intro lesson. So now if I go into, I'll just jump right away into the crane automation, but I'm going to show you. So now I'm going to go back to the library to show you a lesson that's about 45 minutes. So one that's a little bit more in depth here. So now if I search down, I'm going to click on the crane automation. So this is a lesson that's designed for 45 minutes, but we designed the lesson so it actually can go longer. And the reason for that is because you might have some students, again, that are advanced and maybe want to go through, they want to have extra, you might need extra material. So we do try to add extra sections like reflect and challenge. So in the challenges, there's a section where there's like extra topics that you can go a little bit more in depth based off the subject matter of the lesson. So for this is the crane automation, which is about mechanical advantage. So it actually does pull in the information from the intro lesson of simple machines and linkages and mechanical advantage. And then the crane automation is including the microbit, the robotic board, the robotic inventions board for the microbit. So, you know, in this lesson here, it has like the same idea with the standards, the compatible products. It has the additional assets. We do include more in-depth overview and objectives. So then there's like even a breakdown of the lesson structure that's more detailed, and even student objectives. So, you know, when you complete this lesson, you will be able to complete these student objectives. And then in this kind of lesson, because it takes a little bit longer, we do even have sections on facilitation and collaboration work. So it's kind of like a way of us providing some insight as to how you manage group work. So if you have the robotic crane, you may want to work with 2 to 3 students. So we even have like facilitation notes throughout the whole lesson of how to work in groups. We also have the same section as preparation. So then imagine and warm up are basically very similar in sections. We just kind of elaborate a little bit more on automation in warm up. So before you actually start thinking about the crane, think about the history of cranes, we actually want to talk a little bit about automation and why we use automation. So that's basically what warm up is. It kind of gets you started into the topic to build interest. And then create and build, they're basically the same area of building instructions, but in create, you might be building a very small structure, so you can really zero in on learning about linkages or learning to code a little bit with the microbit, especially when you set up the servo motor. Sometimes students might turn the servo motor upside down and you may not recognize or notice these things. So we do try to zero in on the small details, like kind of on the level of like small coding challenges with the project, and then going into the more main builds. And then in reflect, so in reflect, these are the questions that we pose as kind of, it's like a critical reflection on the ideas that guided your students' project when refining and, you know, improving their design. So this is to bridge connections between warm up, imagine, create, and build sections. So this could be, you know, talked about as a whole class. So this could be a whole group discussion. We do have an asset on student journals here where you can actually write it out. So you can print it out and, you know, draw, sketch, or you can distribute through Google Classroom and edit it live. So there's actually many different ways that you can engage in these questions. So that's roughly the difference between the lessons. So we do have like short lessons, intro lessons of 15 minutes, and full lessons that are 45 minutes. And then of course we also have activities. So an activity is just the building instructions. So, you know, we remove the preparation, we remove the material, remove the question blocks, the topics, and just go right into the building instructions. So sometimes you might just want to start building right away, which is totally fine. And then the last thing I want to show is how to make a course. So, you know, in Strawbees Classroom, there actually might be quite a few, you know, materials like, you know, I want to do a forces unit, or I want to do a unit on cranes and simple machines. So if I want to like group them into a course, like I can actually select, and actually another feature I can show you is that there's a star here that I can add to my favorites. So this is another way that you can kind of bookmark your favorites for later. But if you want to like group several student resources into a course, and then just share the link of the course to your students so they can do anything in that course, this is a fantastic opportunity to have like many different activities for them to pick from. So if I click on these 3 buttons here, now I can add to course. And then I'm going to say machines. I'm going to add to course. And then I'm going to go down and add the crane automation lesson, because I think these 2 could be really complementary to each other. And I'm going to add to the course. So I'm going to select add to existing course. So now that I've already made it, I'll just select machines like so. And then actually, I also saw this really great large truss crane. So I think that if I have students that finish early, or maybe I want to have a group of students working together to build a large crane, I'm going to add this activity in here. So now I'm going to add this to course. Same thing, add to my machines unit. And then now if I want to see my course, so up here, there's like 4 squares I can select. This is my courses. So I actually have 3 courses made, and then the star is my favorite. So if I select on courses here, now I have like a few. So if I go onto machines, I can actually select this unit, and then it's going to actually collect all the standards grouped together. So now it's going to achieve like all these engineering design standards as well as sustainable development goals. And it's going to tell me the compatible products right here. So now what I can do is, instead of assigning my students to one activity or one lesson resource at a time, I can actually assign the whole thing. So if I click on here and copy the link, so I'll just actually just paste it here. So this is a special unique link that is associated to your teacher account. So now this course is going to show only the student view of all these resources. So now if I select on any of them, it'll remove all the teacher's notes and the curriculum standards and just show only the student. So you can tell your students, work on the intro, then work on crane, and then work on the truss crane if you're finished. So that's like roughly the quick walkthrough through Strawbees Classroom. But now I'm going to open it up to questions. I know that I've probably missed quite a few questions, but if you have questions, again, use the Q&A down below. I'm going to take a moment to look through the chat and see if there's any questions here. Oh, am I really that good? Well, perhaps I can just take a moment to post some links in here. Price structure. Okay, that's a very good question, Brian. So in terms of the pricing, we're actually taking the time to do some research, because we actually are unsure how we want to price it. So right now it's on a free trial up until 2022. So it's for a limited time. If you sign on now, it's actually better sooner rather than later, because we're currently working with our community of teachers to define what is that value to continuously develop both the platform and the resources within. So to ensure but we also want to ensure that we want to maintain the upkeep of creating new resources and the relevance with teachers. So we will need to charge, but for now, and definitely enjoy the free resources. Yes, exactly, Colleen. We really wanted to think about not managing student sign-on. I can definitely tell you, as experience of, especially when I was teaching programming classes to students, handling 20 student accounts, oof, that's a very, very big task. So that's why we wanted to make it easy, where it's just a simple link, and the only login that you have to worry about is your own teacher account. So of course you don't want to send the teacher view, you want to send the student view. But thankfully, it can actually implement into the learning. If you have a learning management system, it's very easy to implement even this way. So Chris, we do not have PDF courses. So we don't make PDFs currently. That is something that we are exploring, but for now you can, enjoy the assets that we have created in PDF form throughout the classroom. Okay. Yes, and also Ali, I really liked Yay for Inquiry. That is definitely what we want to approach. All right, well, I'll just post a few links in here. Okay, we got a few questions now. Let's see. Okay, so Wisdom asks, can all the groups in the same project work together at the same time, sharing their screens and audio? So if you have a group of students working on the crane, for example, the crane automation lesson, what I would recommend is perhaps sharing the same computer, same tablets, and engage that way, because we don't have any sort of management of answering the questions. We don't keep the answers. We don't really have any way of seeing the progression of students, where they are. So it's actually best if you're in a group dynamic to really share a screen. That would be actually the best way of working, because we don't have the ability to because otherwise students have to, if you have 3 different laptops, students would have to like kind of keep on the same page on 3 different computers. So it'd actually be easier if you focus through one computer unit. But of course, like the nice thing about Strawbees Classroom is you can actually put this on a smart board. So it's actually really great for presenting on very large screens if you want students to all work together, you know, on one project together, because we do plan to have really big detailed builds. So you may want to have instructions that, you know, if you need like 20 pairs of eyes to look at, then you can actually look on a large screen. And then Abby, so you asked about what do you recommend as a starting point as a primary teacher? So, and also as a middle school science teacher. So in this case, what I recommend, forgot I was not showing my screen. Here, let's go back to Strawbees Classroom. So I actually recommend the intro lessons to start. The intro lessons are a really nice way to get started, especially if you don't have like a lot of time. So in here, like all our lessons currently work for grades 3rd through 8th grade, and we're actually working on lessons now where it would work for kindergarten through 2nd grade. But if you want to work in primary, late primary to middle school, basically everything in classroom work. So if I click on even this lesson, the Sierpinski flying, so this one starts at 4th grade. So there might be a few where maybe the concept is like at a 4th grade level, but of course the actual builds and structures themselves are really great for like all ages. It just might be like the curriculum standards or topics that we start to engage in that may change the grade range. But that's why the activities are also designed, because they work for all ages, most of them at least. That's a great question. So the address to classroom. Yes. So let me add this into the chat here. Here. Yes. So Chris asked a question about student journals. So the student journals are in all lessons. So, I mean, in the intro lesson, we may actually, because they're so short, we do tend to keep them like kind of like more on a simple like build and inquiry. But in any of the full 45-minute lessons, yes, we do include all student journals. So we do have a journal here. And typically they all change. They also apply the reflect questions inside there. That's a great question. All right. And there's one more question from Wissam. Do all teachers have access to other teachers' lessons? Is there a thing of exchanges of knowledge between learners? So in terms of the lessons, we don't have an ability to create, like, so if a teacher wants to create a lesson and publish on Strawbees Classroom, we don't have that feature yet, but that is definitely something that we do want to include in terms of adding more community support and also information on, you know, sharing ideas, because we do actually sometimes receive lessons from teachers where they take a model that we have built and they apply it in their own lesson with their own standard that's local to them in Florida. So, you know, we do actually have plans to include more community generated lessons. So that's definitely in the pipeline. Great. So I see if there's any more questions here. All right. Well, I think I've managed to answer most of the questions. So if you have more questions about here, oh, actually, there is one more very important thing. So perhaps you want to recall on some of the things that I just taught, but maybe it might take a day or two before I publish this webinar, this planar online. But I actually want to show you where you can find help and tutorials and support. So basically everything that I just covered, I just want to show you where you can find it. So in Classroom, in the lower right-hand corner, there's this little blue question mark. So if I click on this, there's actually a few video tutorials talking about the library, the dashboard, the individual lessons, so the lesson content, as well as how to create a course and how to make favorites. So we actually are building this library of tutorials for you to follow. So, definitely always keep checking back for the support button here. And you'll also find more videos and more links to articles and getting started onboarding guides that'll help you go through Strawbees Classroom. So that's actually another feature I wanted to share. But thank you everyone for joining me today. Really glad to share this great, exciting development of Strawbees Classroom. So if you have any questions, I'm going to post my email and also the Strawbees Educators Facebook group down in the chat. And also, if you would like to tune into our next set of webinars, so I'm also going to post a link to our webinars. So we actually have 4 exciting webinars following in November. If you want to learn more about Strawbees in STEAM, more getting started with code, as well as the sustainable development goals, and we continue to have more. So stay tuned for the next webinar, and I will also contact everyone who wins the sticker. Thanks, everyone. Good night where you are. Good morning, good afternoon, and good day.